Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Today, we are going to be talking all about Farm to School Month proclamations, and we'll be featuring an advocate's journey to securing a Farm to School Month proclamation in Maine. My name is Cassandra Bull. I am a policy specialist with the National Farm to School Network, and we are joined today. We are spotlighting Renee Page, who is the Executive Director of Healthy Communities of the Capital Area, which is home to Maine's Farm and Sea to Institution and Farm and Sea to School networks. So for our agenda today, I will be giving an introduction and background for around 5 minutes. Then we will turn it over to Renee to talk about her story and her journey. And then we're going to have around 20 minutes for Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we will revisit them at the end during the Q&A portion. So about National Farm to School Network, if you don't know, our mission is to increase access to local food and nutrition education to improve children's health, strengthen family farms, and cultivate vibrant communities. We are a national network made up of over 20,000 members and over 550 official partners all across the nation. There's around 10 of us, and we work all across America. And we're overseen by an advisory board. So if you don't know, October is National Farm to School Month. This was made official by the federal government through House Resolution 1655 all the way back in 2010, which is called Expressing Support for Designation of October as National Farm to School Month. It is a staple of our movement. This is really when the harvest comes in. And it's so great that all across the nation, we are celebrating October as National Farm to School Month. And the federal recognition is just one sort of scale that we can use to celebrate National Farm to School Month. We are also looking at the state level. So on the state side, there are resolutions, which are usually passed by a legislative body. And then there are proclamations, and that is generally proclaimed by a governor, someone in the executive branch. And then at the local level, there are a lot of the takeaways and systems in place at the federal and state level can be translated at the local level, say with school boards, or even at the city level or county legislatures. And there are so many benefits to proclaiming and celebrating Farm to School Month in this way. They are to create an official public record of government support. They can also help build political will that paves the way for deeper support and deeper relationships that can maybe lead to funding down the way. They also give local champions a tool to bring to skeptical administrators or school boards and say, look, our government supports farm to school, and this is why you should too. They help recognize and strengthen coalition efforts of all the work you've been doing all across the nation. They help really bring validity to that. They help generate media moments and have more visibility in your community when we celebrate Farm to School Month proclamations. They also create a recurring annual platform for events and other engagement by our elected officials. And my favorite is that they are no cost. So they help advance our mission of farm to school in difficult political moments, whether that's tight budgets or in areas that don't tend to fund farm to school. This is a great way that our elected officials can help support farm to school. And there's so much going on during the month of October, but here are just some activity ideas. You can schedule a field trip to a farm, a market, a fishery, or a different farm to school site. You can participate in the Big Apple Crunch event or any other special local food days. You can display posters and stickers. You can also celebrate what's happening in your community that's unique to your community assets. And my favorite, you can host an elected official to school lunch. And so a few years ago, on the right is a screenshot. National Farm to School Network released this resource called Advocating for Farm to School, How to Host Site Visits. And I definitely recommend checking that out. There's lots of tips and tricks and templates that you can use when you are inviting your elected officials to come check out what you have going on. And National Farm to School Network offers a lot of resources to you all to help you celebrate National Farm to School Month. These include a celebration toolkit, fact sheets, posters, logos, save the date postcards, some stickers, which are on the left over here, some examples. New in 2024, we added more fish and seafood components to our repertoire, which is great because we're featuring Maine right now. We also have bookmarks, coloring page, Google slide deck templates, and Zoom backgrounds, one of which I am sporting here today. And these can all be found on our website. The link is below, and it will be in the description of this recording when it's released. And then lastly, we have a bunch of tools to help you celebrate Farm to School Month and get those proclamations and resolutions happening in your state. And so right here, it's on a resource card on our website. And within this resource card, you will see examples of state language, whether that's at the proclamation level and the resolution level. And you will also see webinar recordings. So this is where this conversation we'll have today will be held after we're done. And also there is a webinar back from 8 years ago on farm to school resolutions and proclamations to check out as well. And the last thing I'll say is that don't wait. Spring is the best time to start planning. And it is exactly when Renee started her journey 1 year ago. So, with that being said, I will turn it over to her. Renee,
Are you seeing my slides?
we see them. You're good.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, hi everyone. Great to be here today to talk about this fun process. Much less painful than embarking upon some legislative action that can be much more arduous, but this was a fun one for sure. So I'm happy to talk about this today. My name is Renee Page. I'm the executive director at Healthy Communities of the Capital Area. We're a public health nonprofit organization based in central Maine. We do a variety of public health prevention work. So not just food systems work, we do tobacco and substance use prevention. We work on other projects like problem gambling. But we do a lot of healthy eating, active living work. And under that umbrella is what started as Maine Farm to School Network and evolved into Maine Farm and Sea to School Network. So I was really happy to hear you have a nod to seafood in school meals. And our work also, about 8 to 10 years ago, expanded to be Maine Farm and Sea to institution. So we started going beyond K-12 schools and ECEs, and we started working with healthcare facilities and correctional facilities, institutes of higher education, and we're actually starting to do more and more work with long-term care facilities. So doing a lot of work with food serving institutions as part of our work to prevent diet-related chronic disease. So couched within Maine Farm and Sea to Institution, we have several work groups and committees, and one of which is the Maine Food Policy Work Group, where many partners came together to help inform this process. So, of course, we're working on other state and contributing to federal policy initiatives with the Food Policy Work Group, but also this was the group that kind of helped advise the proclamation. I also just want to say that this was on my own personal bucket list. I think I should probably point that out. So that's what really gave me the drive to get it going. I had heard of other states having proclamations over the years, and so I felt like Maine should really have our own. So wanted to cross that one off my own personal bucket list. So I took the initiative to get the ball rolling. And we also felt like the time was right in Maine last year when we did this. We had a supportive a governor around these issues, and we felt like now would be the time before she terms out this year. So all of those things together kind of set us up for the right time to start doing this work. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the process before I share our actual proclamation, and the what we ended up with in the end. But in terms of the process, once we decided we were going to do this about a year ago, we recognize that all of this work is, kind of couched in a little bit of who you know and not always what you know. So I started with Cassandra because I knew she would be able to help me research what other states had done because we were interested in maybe looking at some sample language and getting some ideas about what other states had done with their process and where they landed with their proclamation. So Cassandra was my first stop, so I highly encourage that if anybody is looking to embark upon this process themselves. And I also happened to have a personal contact in the governor's office who I reached out to ask, how, if one were to seek a proclamation, where would I start? So he was super helpful to me too, and I'll be sharing in what ways that was helpful. But I don't think you absolutely need a connection in your governor's office because I suspect what I learned after connecting with him, you all probably have similar systems in place. We also thought it was important to engage our state agency partners and just so they didn't feel blindsided by the process. And we wanted to make sure that we had their support all along the way. So Maine Farm Sea to School Network and Maine Farm Sea to Institution works closely with the Department of Education, Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry, as well as our Maine CDC, which is couched within our DHHS offices. So we made sure that they were all aware of what we were doing and actually ended up helping us later on with collecting data and other points that we wanted to include. So next, after we kind of figured out our pathway, we started to hone in on what language we wanted to include. So we knew we wanted to include some current data to help make the case, but we also didn't want it to be so time bound and specific in the present that it wouldn't stand the test of time because we want to be able to revisit this proclamation year over year for years to come. But for us, especially HCCA, Healthy Communities of the Capital Area, it was very important that we made a nod to the importance that farm to school plays in health. So there are definitely some nods to health within our proclamation, as well as the local food economy. And like I mentioned, we were sure to include some data points to help make the case and strengthen the message. We also leaned into our sense of place. So Maine, like all states, have certain food products or certain aspects of your state that you might want to highlight that farm to school helps lift up. So you'll hear more about that in a few minutes when I talk about the language. And then we were sure to align with some other priorities that were going on with this administration and also across the state that made sense to align with farm to school. So my friend at the governor's office, when I said I wanted, what's the process for like seeking a proclamation from the governor? How do you go about that? And he actually said, well, actually, there's a web page for that. So on the governor's website, there's a page which you can see over here on the left, request a proclamation. So it's as easy as that. So this is the page. When you click on request a proclamation, this is where it takes you. And I'm going to actually read you the first paragraph because this was really key to the guidance, which says proclamations are issued by the governor to recognize and celebrate the extraordinary achievements of state citizens and nonprofit organizations, to honor occasions of importance and significance to the citizens of the state, and to increase public awareness of issues with the hope of improving the well-being of all Maine citizens. So, I mean, we felt like this just fit perfectly. And I learned you could also have a proclamation geared toward an individual, which I did not know. So this webpage also goes on to show you the actual process for submitting your request. If you scroll down on the page, it gives you, the specific guidance to try to get this in, 45 days in advance of the, whatever your date is or your event that you want to acknowledge. It can only be requested by a citizen or a Maine-based program. It must be apolitical, so it must not be politically leaning, and the proclamation must affect a broad group of citizens. Whoops, sorry about that. And then it goes on to say what your proclamation should include. So the name, the day of the week or month to be proclaimed. So in this case, we were seeking Maine Farm Sea to School Month. Proposed verbiage, including 4 to 5 whereas clauses. So this is something that's very common to proclamations, is that you will proclaim what the event is and then back it up with all these clauses that state essentially supporting it. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how Maine determined those clauses and where we landed. And then just, information about the person submitting the request. So it's as simple as that. And then you come down and you click on the button to request a proclamation. It opens up a form that it's just an online form that you literally fill out. So for us, very straightforward, Maine Farm Sea to School Month, October. Has it been proclaimed in the past? No. Is it in conjunction with a national recognition? So yes, we were able to say Maine or National Farm to School Month, and left it at that. We didn't list other states. And then we were aiming to announce this at our Maine Farm and Sea to Institution Summit happening in October. So that was our event where we wanted this presented. And so we provided some information about that. And then more information about the network and HCCA, so we provided a history of the network, how long we've been doing this work in Maine. And then we also listed our partners in this. So that's where we included our state agency partners and also a lot of our other notable network partners that the governor would likely be aware of. And then, of course, we weren't honoring an individual, so we didn't fill out that section. And then this is where you enter your actual language. So this is where my team and my friend at the governor's office, everybody really helped hone this down, because I tend to be very verbose, and I think, farm to school is awesome. So I could list 101 ways why for this proclamation. So that was helpful too, engaging a team to kind of wordsmith the language, but still make sure that we were hitting all those bullet points I had listed initially. And then, contact information, and then how would you like to receive? So they'll either mail it to you or you can go pick it up. So it really was as simple as that once we got the language together. And then, of course, is just terms and conditions. So I just did some screenshots so you could see how easy it is in Maine. And I know Cassandra's going to share my slides with you. So if you want to go back and just look at this, you certainly will be able to. So getting into the whereas statement. So we wanted to make sure, like going back to those initial priorities, we wanted to make sure that we talked about, what are farm to school programs, and who do they benefit? How do they support Maine's heritage, agriculture, and fishing industries? What are the economic impacts of farm to school? How does how Farm to School upholds Maine's Dirigo model, which, for those of you who aren't familiar with our state motto, it is simply Dirigo, which translates to I lead. And Maine has been a leader in Farm to School for many years. Our network formed right alongside the national network. It's been in existence that long, for going on 20 years now. So we feel like we've been a leader in this work and we wanted to highlight that. We also wanted to link this to Maine state constitutional right to food. This was a recent development over the past recent years where the Maine state constitution actually has written in it a right to food, and we feel like Farm to School supports that. And also, our governor had already proclaimed 2025 as the year of Maine's youth and agriculture. So this was definitely in alignment with that. So we were excited to make those connections as well. Okay. Oh, so here it is. Here it is. Here's the proclamation. So I told Cassandra, I hope that you all indulge me because I'm actually going to read it to you. And I have it with me right here, framed, and I'm going to read it from this because that font is too small for me on that screen. So if it's too small for you, you get to hear me read it. So at the top, it says State of Maine Proclamation. And here's where the whereas clause come in. Whereas Farm and Sea to School programs enrich the connection communities have with their local food producers by bringing fresh, locally produced and harvested food into schools throughout Maine, and whereas Farm and Sea to School programs benefit both our students and food producers by increasing fresh, whole food consumption and improving health outcomes while also increasing revenue and customer base for Maine food producers. And whereas more than 30,000 Maine people are employed in agriculture and fisheries, and it is crucial we continue to support these vital heritage industries. And whereas in school year 2023 to 24, 119 of Maine's 215 school food authorities purchased $968,000 of Maine produced food with the help of Maine's Local Foods Fund, leveraging over 300,000 in matching state dollars. And whereas Maine was one of the first states in the nation to implement Farm and Sea to School programs and continues to be a leader in the national movement, and whereas Maine's Constitution recognizes the right to food and Farm and Sea to School programs ensure access to fresh, healthy food in our schools. And whereas in 2025, Maine's Year of Youth in Agriculture, it is important that we continue building and understanding the connection between Maine children and the source of their food so that we may encourage and support the next generation who will feed our state. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Janet T. Mills, Governor of the State of Maine, do hereby proclaim October 2025 as Maine Farm and Sea to School Month. And I encourage schools, food producers, community groups, and others to help support the purchase and sale of locally harvested and produced Maine food products. And then it is signed with the Maine State Seal by the Governor and the Secretary of State. So thank you for indulging me with that. But I hope as I read some of those clauses, some of you it might resonate with some of you and some of what's going on in each of your states and help give you some ideas if you haven't done this already. So next, I just wanted to bring it back home and just kind of point out that, where we checked our boxes around our priorities around health, economy, data, sense of place, and alignment with other priorities, and how each clause does that. And so next, like all good policy, it doesn't end once, it's picked up from the governor's office and put in the frame and on the shelf. Next steps are to promote. So, of course, we put this out on all of our, e-news and socials. We did press releases. We were sure to engage our legislators and members of Congress to make them aware, as well as all of our partner network organizations to encourage them to leverage this proclamation as part of their events, just like Cassandra said at the beginning. So, of course, during National Farm to School Month, we are now, pairing that with Maine Farm and Sea to School Month and with other activities like Apple Crunch Day. I will say that also on the governor's website, there's a link to request her presence at an event. So we did invite the governor to come to our summit to unveil the proclamation. But unfortunately, at the last minute, she was rescheduled, actually announcing her Senate run that day. So that took precedence for her, and she couldn't make it to our event. So I had the great honor of reading the proclamation at our Maine Farm and Sea Institution Summit last October. And so with that, I'll wrap it up. Here's a couple of what's a, webinar presentation without some websites for you to check out. Healthy Communities of the Capital Area is our fiscal and staffing home for both of our food systems networks. And then also there's a link there so that you can visit the governor's website where our proclamation request is available. And also, before I stop talking, I just want to have a shout out for our beautiful artwork that's sprinkled throughout my presentation. This is our main Harvest of the Month artwork that we have, and we just love it, and we use it whenever we can. So I hope you enjoyed it throughout my slides. Okay, I'm going to stop talking and pass it back to you, Cassandra. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. And as we open it up to questions, I'd love to hear if any of you have done this and if it was different or similar, or, just curious what other states' processes are like.
That was beautiful. Give it up for Renee. Thank you so much for sharing. Congratulations again. That was lovely. Um, yeah, and thanks for sharing your journey. I'm so glad that Maine could have a Farm to School Month proclamation. So yeah, I agree. I would love if there were any questions for Renee, and also feel free to share what you're thinking about for your state or school or county as well.
I have a question real quick. I'm gonna, I don't know, invoke my privilege as a staff member to kick things off. I was wondering, in terms of considerations around language, if there were things that, how you negotiated trying to make it politically neutral, evergreen, or I mean, even wording, right, that like maybe is politically loaded in your state, and how you negotiate that with deciding sort of the contents of the proclamation clauses with, yeah, with different members or different allies.
Sure. Thanks for that question, Karen. I'll just start by saying that's part of the beauty of farm to school is that for the most part, it's not too politically driven, but it's one of the easier things to get buy-in from both sides of the aisle. So that's nice. So and it helps. Of course, I should share like the original draft, right, with all the stuff before it really got edited down. But we didn't lean, I think we wanted to keep it very high level, mostly to have it withstand that test of time. And I feel like some of the maybe more politically driven issues around food systems may be more time bound and either solved or ignored, unfortunately, as time goes on. So I'm not really thinking of anything specific that would have been an issue politically. But that said, I mean, like I said right out of this, when we felt like we had an administration in place that would be amenable to it. So, there is that. But we didn't really have any tough conversations about the language.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I see a question from Miguel. actually to me of do we know how many states have Farm to School Month proclamations? And I want to say that is exactly what I told Renee when she asked was I do not know. It's something we actually don't keep track of, like really in a systemic way. I do. So, in the example that's on the resource card now, there are quite a few states I found, but you have to dig deep and it's over time. So, dating all the way back to the early 2000s, maybe 2010, there were different states. There's been a lot more since 2020. And I've seen them be all across the nation. So, they're not really concentrated in a particular region or a particular political landscape. It's been great to read how unique they are, but no, I don't think we have a count. Renee and I were discussing earlier that we would love all of the states to have their own Farm to School Month proclamations. And then a last thing I'll note is we would love to share yours out as National Farm to School Network as a platform. We love to keep track of what's going on during Farm to School Month. So please, any of you listening to this or on this call, feel free to share it to anyone on staff that you're doing this because it would be great to spread the word.
Yeah, and I will say, if you remember, Cassandra, when we were digging, there are a lot of other similar types of proc that aren't just straight up farm to school month, but they were similar, not unlike Year of Youth in Agriculture, like we had. Like we found related proclamations, but not necessarily specifically farm to school month.
That's true. Yeah, like Ag Week, School
Yep.
Lunch Week, those kinds of things are also quite common.
I think too, one thing I would add, if you recall, I mentioned we have a food policy work group. I think this could be an easy, like I'm guessing, like right now, our state legislature is done for the session. So we're not as active, and the timing is great to get started on something like this. And I think it's really helpful to look at what the other states have done and just decide on what priorities you want to lift up and highlight for your state, and then find that data, a couple data points to support it. And yeah, it's a really nice win right now when there's a lot of challenge happening, I feel, at all levels. So, just having a happy win, and I think it can help create some cohesiveness and solidarity among, you don't need a policy work group. I mean, in all honesty, I could have just done it myself, but that's not the best way, right? You want everyone to come behind you and provide their input and their, what they want to see in there. And I think that was the best part, was just working with our partners and getting that buy-in and support. And now everyone feels like they had a role in getting this across the finish line. And now we can, circle back to it every year in October.
That's great. I see in the chat, Amber Lewis, hi Amber from Montana, says that the last one they found from Montana was in 2013, but we'll be looking for yours in 2026 coming out in October this year. Thanks for working on that. And Amy's had a similar process for Local Food Day in Iowa. Yeah, I feel like once you get in the rhythm of these and you see how easy it is, it may be a dangerous slope to just start proclaiming all of these great things that are happening in our work, but never a
Thanks,
bad thing.
Sandra Bull Day.
Renee Page Day. Um,
Yeah.
so something I guess also to go back to Miguel's question, we do have a rather complete account of the resolutions, as I mentioned. So there's the legislative resolutions passed by states, and then there's proclamations through the governor's office. And that's something we don't really keep track of governor related work. But that was my question for Renee. It's like, did you make a decision on whether you wanted a proclamation or a resolution? And why did you make that decision?
Um, we did not. We just had, I guess, proclamation on the brain.
Great.
once that seed was planted many years ago, some state had done it, and I just have always thought, we have to do this, we have to do this, and then just finally ripped off the Band-Aid and did it. And then once I realized how easy it was, kind of kicked ourselves for not doing it sooner. But I think, had we done it years ago, we might not have woven in, the seafood aspect. We wouldn't have had such great data around the success of our local food fund. So, it all worked out, and we're really pleased with it.
That's great. And yeah, I noticed you used the census and you used your own policy data as well. Are there any tips you have in terms of like using the census? What particular data points you recommend using?
I think the participation and actually how many schools participate, I think drives a lot of it because we have good participation. Also gives you, as it always does, like a initiative to try to increase that number of participating schools. So um, I think it's a motivator, help move that needle. And I don't know if you remember the dollars that we read, but I mean, I was like, oh, so $968,000. It's like, oh, look, we're so close to 1 million. Like, so it's just those types of things. It'd be great to go, look at this again in 5 years and just see how much has changed in terms of I was excited to be able to nod to our constitutional right to food and Year of Youth and Ag, but it'll be interesting to see where we are in 3 to 5 years, if there's even more we could be lifting up or celebrating as part of Farm Sea to School Month. So yeah, it's, the
That's
data
great.
is good.
And Sally said that they have one for the state of Washington, but are considering going to county commissioners for a county proclamation or more local level buzz. And I actually didn't mention this, but about 10 years ago, I helped our county legislature do a Farm to School Month proclamation. So have personal experience doing that. And it feels very full circle to now be talking about state and national proclamations. So yeah, that's definitely something we recommend to just build more local level attention. Renee, is that something you saw or are thinking about in Maine?
I'm writing down now, do our county commissioners do proclamations? Because I don't even know that. I'm gonna research that. I'm not sure. I can't think of any off the top of my head that are county level. So, and are you saying they are proclamations? They're basically the same
I was trying to remember. I really feel like ours was a resolution, but then
resolution?
I was on a different county. Like as I was researching this earlier this week, I was on a different county's website where they had the portal and they designated what they do proclamations and resolutions for, and their definition was slightly different. Like one was for individuals and one was for organizations. So I don't know if that's common, but I think different locations do it differently and they'll just share their rules.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely a learning experience. Like I have said already, I was surprised how easy it was, and also how easy it is to request that the governor come to your event. I mean, it's just a form, just like the other one. So, yeah, it was a good like citizen learning too, that how our state government works with those things.
That's great. Any additional questions that you all maybe working on Farm to School Month proclamations have while we're on the call?
I had one additional question about something Renee mentioned that I thought was useful is you mentioned reaching out to like letting all the state legislators know about the proclamation. And I was just wondering, if you wanted to share about how you went about that or any results or follow up or yeah, how you feel like that.
Yeah, I don't know that it was a direct communication to all legislators, but I think like a communication went to at least like the Ag Committee and maybe the Education Committee. We have legislators who are engaged with our policy work group already, so they were helping to spread the word. We had legislators at our summit, so it wasn't, we weren't cherry picking. We were trying to get the word out for sure to everybody, but I don't think I can't take credit that it went to every single legislator. Um, but we do have contacts, and we only have two representatives to Congress, and of course the two senators. So for folks in Congress, so that's not, and we have contacts in those offices, so that wasn't too difficult. So always nice to just be sent, not asking for something, right? Like just letting you know this happy thing. We're not asking for your support or whatever for any particular thing. This is just happening in your state.
Absolutely. I was gonna say that's always like the part about relationship building is coming before you want anything.
Yeah. And I think too, I'm glad you mentioned that resource, Cassandra, about inviting legislators to like school lunch or wherever. I mean, I'm sure those tips would work for any invitation to a legislator to attend an event. I think folks that can be intimidated by that, but I think most, local legislators want to go to things who doesn't want to get out of the state house and go, visit a constituent and enjoy some fresh local food and hear about the great work that's happening in their service area.
Absolutely. And you also mentioned reaching out to the people that work in the Department of Education and maybe agriculture. Did they have any substantive feedback for you in terms of what you were doing?
Yeah, I mean, the initial outreach was awareness, like just want to let you know we're doing this. Do you have any concerns or do you have any ideas? And all of them were very supportive, thought it was a great idea, go get them kind of thing. And then once we got actually writing the clauses, then we circled back to get some of the data that we were looking for around like labor data with the ag industry and the fishing industry, as well as like final numbers for the most recent school year on local food purchasing and stuff like that. So they were excited to be able to provide that support for the language.
Great. Yes, as technical experts, they were part of the process and got buy-in in that way.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. Um, we know that these proclamations are largely symbolic and celebratory, and feel good, but I'm wondering if there has been any like direct impact
Mhm.
from that process since October.
Um, I I don't know yet. Nothing quantifiable yet. We were certainly encouraging our partners to celebrate Maine Farm and Sea to School Month by, and recognizing the part of what they were already doing in October. And I think over time, as we continue to do that, we may actually see some impact. Like I use the constitutional right to food and the Year of Youth and Ag as levers for the proclamation. I'm curious to see how the proclamation might help advance other initiatives in the future. So stay tuned on
That's
that
great.
one.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you for being here, Renee. Thanks for talking us through your journey, and those screenshots were really helpful. I loved, reading the website and all the nitty-gritty and how you were thinking about it. Anyone on the call, feel free to get in touch with myself or Karen Spangler, our policy director, or anyone from the National Farm to School Network if you are looking for assistance or help in promoting your Farm to School month this October. That's what we're here to do. Thanks, Renee, for all the shout outs, but we are here to help you support Farm to School and move our movement forward. So thanks for being here. Great work, Renee.
Yeah, thanks, Miguel. Great to see you. Yeah, thanks for having me. This was really fun, Cassandra. Like the whole thing's been fun, right? It's nice to just have a fun one.
It's nice to have a fun one. Congratulations again.
Great. All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody.
Bye.